Is there an echo now? Echo, echo. Nope, okay. So for some reason he was still picking up my mic. I don't know why it does that, but the mic from my headset, sorry. Because I'm not wearing a headset, I'm speaking to my microphone, but sound is funny sometimes. Anyway, welcome to the show. Before I even start, I have to address some other things, like join us on our socials, go to our Discord, like and follow and everything on our Twitch and on our YouTube channel. Would be great if you do. If you have the Prime Video account, send your love our way, and that would be great as well. If you don't like the show, don't follow us, but I hope you do like the show. And the other thing is that next Monday there will be another parallel projections with Michel. Then the day after that will be at 8:30 Central European Time. Then the Tuesday after that will be another Talking Void, where I will be discussing what made you never want to quit role-playing games again. And I'll be doing that with Erik as my guest. And then the Monday after that it will be the Precipice of Dreams again. So, about that. Well, thank you, chat. Man, now I feel bad that I'm just going to chat. I might still call you Ash sometimes, I don't know. But I'm thinking of the YouTube perspective on this thing. But anyway, because it's instructional, you know. As you might have noticed, I have well, now it stops, but I have the speaking format already. So let's dive in to the introduction, and then we are going to discuss some session preparation. And now I realize that I have to put this on, and then here we go. See you soon. Man, I just love that intro. It's short and it's so me. Thank you, Michel. And we might all have calmed down in 2 weeks after Precipice last night, still geeking out over it. Yeah, so yesterday we had our Precipice of Dreams session, in which I play Bowen, in which our dungeon master is Roger, who is a long-time friend, and we're both forever dungeon masters. And I must say he did an exquisite job on DMing yesterday. So if you ever feel like, what does a well-prepped show look like, then be sure to watch episode 18 of the Precipice of Dreams, because man, I was flabbergasted. I think that's the word I used on the show as well. So do I have something to live up to? Well, maybe. I don't know. The thing is that today I'm going to continue what we left behind in the last episode, which is we are starting with Pleasantville again, and from that point on we'll be starting to develop the adventure some more. I will not do Pleasantville every time. I will go on to other subjects, but I think that for now, because the episode is called The Journey Continues, continuing the journey, sorry. And it's a good starting point for the next things I would like to tell you. So, without further ado. Anyway, let's dive into the subject matter of today, and we might start by exploring the map that's around here. Okay, so this is funny. You see my arm, the hairy bit and everything. I put on a sweater, and it's still there. Well, anyway, okay. So this is another kind of map. Oh, I had to show. Where is it? My son drew a map and he wanted me to show it on stream, but now I can't find it, which is a pity. Sad things. No, can't find it. I will show it on the next show. Well, this is a map I've been drawing for the adventure that I will be doing with my wife and my child. We had a talk about that on Talking Void, but I thought it was a great example of kind of an advanced starter map, if that makes any sense. I like to, when I DM myself, I like to prepare very thoroughly. So, for example, when I played I've got two campaigns. The one campaign is the Dark Earth campaign, which is my homebrew campaign, and the other is the Urtur campaign, which is another of my homebrew campaigns. They've both been in development for like 20 years now, and I started playing Dark Earth by starting to use a pre-made adventure the night below, and I placed the I don't know if it was a county or the province, I don't know, of Heronshire. I placed that in a map of the first country I developed there, and that country was called Troy, and from there I started building my world and adding the lore. The other way is the my Urtur campaign, which I started by really thinking about what do I want this campaign to be. And so I started with thinking of a concept of what kind of campaign I would like to run. And from there on off, I started filling in the pieces and discovering facts about my own world, because I was doing a very thorough job, and sometimes things make logical sense or make sense when you... well, maybe I should give an example. For example, I was thinking about how the continents were drifting in the oceans, because they are, and why the sun would still come up in the east on the continent where most of the humans live, for example, because I still wanted it to make the same movement across the sky on a world that's flat, where the continents are going around. And then it made logical sense to, instead of one sun, have 180 suns that get fired out of holes on the edge of the world and go over the world, land in a pocket on the other side, and when a flame that goes around and lights them up, so to say, gets to the other side, it throws that ball back to the other side. So then you have 180 suns that cover 360 days a year, and the continents drift with those globes. And as the continents drift, the sun makes a slight curve to the north, I think, before it, seemingly makes a slight curve to the north before it lands on the other side. And it's not even the north, it's actually west of the north. Well, anyway, that's an example how a campaign can surprise you while you're developing it. I'm not sure it makes more sense in the right phrase, but it sounds amazing. Yeah, okay, so, city world. You have to know a bit more about my world, for example. But anyway, what I wanted to talk about is the two approaches you can have to starting an adventure. Just picking up a module and starting to develop from a certain starting point and building your world around that point, or really go make a deep dive, develop the whole world, and then place your party inside of the adventure, inside of the world, and start your adventure where you want to go. And I will be discussing that, how you can, because, well, I'll be discussing it in a certain way, like I will not prepare a whole campaign for you, because that seems silly and that's way too much time that I have to spend on stream doing that. But what I can do is explain how certain things in your world can be set, and from there on you already have a sort of setting where you can place certain aspects of your campaign and start telling a story before you even do your first session. So you know who the gods are, who the what's happening in the world, because this time of a century, for example. Anyway, I'll be discussing that as well. But for now, let's start with a small village called Pleasantville and go from there. So this is a much more silly map because I drew that live. And it's not that beautiful, but I think it does the job, which I said on a previous episode as well. Pleasantville is a village that lies on two crossroads in a world. Well, let me go to the other thing. Let's go to this screen. Hope you can read it. If not, then I'll be saying something about it anyway. So the adventure is well. now I've lost. I think I've lost something here, namely the name of the world. But I think it was like Varden or something. Anyway. In this world, which is an inner world, which means that it lies on the inside of a kind of shell, and the sun is in the middle of this inverted globe and lights the world around it. Screen didn't change. Oh. Why is it not changing? I can see it. Now it does. That's strange. Anyway, thank you for the warning. So the inside of the globe is being lit by a sun, and once the moon started revolving around the sun, and people started to look up, and they discovered that there were lights on the other side of the sun. They suddenly realized that you could go to the other side of the world by making a very long journey to the other side of the world. Well, you this made for a lot of discoveries, a lot of people who went on journeys to explore the great jungles, the deserts and everything of the world. I didn't put it like this in the last episode. It was a very prosperous time, kind of renaissance, wherein everybody was kind of happy by discovering that they could trade with all kinds of societies, and then these towns popped up on crossroads where trade was very there was trade in abundance, and then one of these villages that revolve around a single square is Pleasantville. And we already established that in Pleasantville there was a bard who lost his voice, and we prepped that part of a session last time. But we also ended on a note where something happened at the end. There was this collapsed house, and suddenly the sun kind of did a stroboscope kind of thing, and the house collapsed, and a beam of black energy sirens outside, sorry, went up from the cottage and left, went upwards, shot upwards, and then the cottage collapsed and there was just ruins. And we left the party there, and we left the session preparation there as well. So I've been really inspired for the last 2 weeks to continue this, the preparation of the next part of this session. And we can go so many ways. But the thing is that you need this time sometimes to come up with new ideas. So I would also always recommend not playing every day in the same campaign, because you really need time to develop the story that you're trying to tell. This is what Roger told yesterday as well after the session, that the way he told, he did the session of the Precipice of Dreams had been developing. It had been ready for, like, I don't know, maybe 8 weeks. But at the same time, it kept on developing until we were at the session where we were, because he got new input, and we did new things, we did unexpected things, and so the story modified itself and became bigger and became better over time. And this is a thing you have to really consider with Dungeons and Dragons. You can't plan for a session that's 10 sessions away in such a way that it will always be accurate what you plan to do with it. And so, for example, when we left our party in Pleasantville, after the first encounter with the Bard, we now have to see what they are going to do. And this is one of those things which you can approach in several ways. You can ask the party what they want to do. What do you want to do now? And they might say, well, of course we're going to investigate the cottage. Or, well, we don't like what's happening, we're going to flee this town. Or we're going to the barman and ask him the barkeep and ask him if there's anything else to do in the village, because he looked worried, and we might try to find his daughter or whatever. Or we might go to the mayor of the city to ask him if there are any jobs, or we take a look around, and see what's happening, how are people reacting, or even we are doing a history check to see if this has any significance with stuff we know. A lot of these things have their own special place of preparation. If they are trying to go after what happened at the end of the last session, then you better know what's happening there. Or not. There we go again. Because if you don't know yourself, but you wanted to end your session on a high note, of which you don't really know what is going to happen, you might just say, well, the cottage has been collapsed. Of course you can investigate. And they might find nothing. Or they might find a brooch with a glowing blue gem in it, but they can't identify it because it has some kind of protective energy around it. Or they might find a cellar full of bodies, and something dark happened there, and when the sun blinked, dark energy could finally leave that place and took part in what's happening in the world. So that might be the thing you have to develop if they say they're going towards the cottage. The other thing, if they go to the barkeep and they ask him, is there a job? And he might say a very different kind of things. He might say, well, I've got this problem with my beer. My casks are empty and I need some new ones quickly. So could you go to the next town, which we call, what shall we call it? What shall we call the next town? Anybody? Resolve the adventure. Not to say that we are going that way. Next town. Well, let's make it Borderville, because it's near a border, right? So go to the next town, Borderville. There's a brewery there, and get me a cask. Ochre. Well, okay. Well, let's delete this then. So that's the next town. And they might go for that. If they make a history check about what might be happening, then you have a whole other problem. Because, well, if you decide they need a 25 on their history check to know even a bit about what's happening, then some players might get very lucky and get to know what's happening. And if I say history check, it's any kind of lore check, of course, but we are using Dungeons and Dragons as the system by default. And then you have to come up with a story on the spot, or you might tell them it's beyond your reach anyway. But at a certain point, this gets awkward, because you can't keep on saying that it's a mystery. You have to give them something. As you know by now, if you've seen our other shows, I'm a big Lost fan, but you have to partition the knowledge that you're giving to the players. So in that case, you might really start trying to develop part of the story just a bit more. And then there are the other options, going to the mayor and everything. And you might even, as a dungeon master, decide, well, I've started this big thing, but really what I want to do is guide them to a den of goblins and let them slaughter them, because that's what I know how to prepare, and I want them going that direction. So all these things have their own consequences. And then there's another part, and that's what kind of adventure do you even want to do? Is it a light-hearted adventure where everybody at the table is always laughing because things are funny and never get too serious? Will it be a horror adventure where you expect a certain amount of degree of, your players being serious at the table so they can really emerge in the feeling of this campaign? Is it a high fantasy campaign? Is it about traveling the world? Is it a heroic campaign? All these things you have to consider to know which direction you might go. Because, and your party has to like it somewhat too. Yeah, you have to do this with your party, because if your party dislikes the way you're being a dungeon master, then this might not work at the table. And the way you do this, both things, is by probably asking them, what do you want? Do you want a dark adventure? Do you want a lighthearted adventure, or whatever? And do you and which task would you like to do so I can prepare for next session? So I am a dungeon master who, in a way, does too little of this. I like my dark and gritty adventures. I like trauma, and my players will always experience trauma. But in recent years, I have thought about why am I doing this? Because it might not really be fun to have this dark, dramatic campaign for going on for like 9 years and never getting anything resolved of the darker parts of the adventure. So in recent years, I've become a bit more lighthearted, a bit more playing with the rule of cool, handing them certain boons and making them feel good about the things they are achieving. But if the players like it dark and gritty, if they like the trauma, then that's okay too. And I think that it's a good way to do an adventure by at least letting them know the stakes of what's happening. Actions have consequences and stuff. So if they decide to do a certain thing, which is not allowed by, for example, City Watch, then you should punish them in a way. Not by killing them, of course, because that would make for a silly adventure, but you could drive them out of town, or you could have them in a cell for a day, or whatever. So chat says, cask of beer to pick up is Eververtu. It's a green tinged ale that's a perfect hangover cure. Yeah, well, we all want that kind of ale, don't we? So we could go with your suggestion and go with going after a cask, and then we might have a lighthearted adventure. I like it though. Maybe we'll do that, because every silly thing aside, I think that a good start of an adventure is a road trip. As you might by now have discovered if you watched The Precipice of Dreams. So what do we need to prepare for a road trip? So let's say we've decided not too dark for now. Leave the mystery where it is. They may, well, let's just say they might. Road trip, says chat again. There's the inn. Let me see if I can... what happens if I change the camera now, if you can see the map again. I think the problem is... Yes, I think you can see it now, right? So, I think that if you... well, you have some kind of... You can predict certain things about an adventure, and that's that if you make a cottage collapse, and the black thing is getting out of the collapsed cottage, then probably... Sorry, sip of water. And then probably they will want to investigate this thing, because players always think that everything is about them. And for about 90% they might be right. They have to investigate the cottage. Now, we are not going to dark right now, and we don't want to reveal the mystery behind the blinking sun yet, because that's foreshadowing something that will happen later in the adventure. But we want to give them a feeling that they have some agency in this. But not too easy, of course, because they're first level characters, probably. They've just done their first quest, which was in a way kind of find and retrieve quest, not too complicated. And let's say that ended in them letting go of the other bard and giving back the voice to the bard that had contracted them. So now they are on the square, and they need to go into the house. So the house is on the edge of the square. I think that was a thing. So we've got the square, and then there's a road that you see here. And then here's the collapsed cottage. Now, I always like the classic Dungeons and Dragons symbols for things. So, square for a door. Can you see this? Is this okay? I think that on the big screen it's okay, right? You won't be seeing it on a telephone anyway. But it's collapsed, so parts of it have fallen away. You can really walk in, but what you can see is that there used to be a staircase here, and part of the ground has collapsed. Things have fallen through. Debris are lying on the sides of the house. And the first thing, off to work. Thanks for the show as I was getting ready for the day. My pleasure. You can always watch it back on YouTube. See you. Always nice to have you here. And yep, all good. And have a good day, JT. So, yeah, it's really fun that you join us for even a few seconds. Or a few minutes. I love it. And I mean that. I sometimes come over sarcastically, but I'm not. Well, I am a sarcastic kind of person, but not when it comes to giving thanks. You see how my mind works? Anyway. So here's the collapsed village. Now, we know that there are a couple of buildings, like the inn. I don't know if it was on this corner, but this is where the inn is. And of course, because it's a small village, well, I don't think it really has a mayor, but it might have some kind of person that's really guarding this town, and he lives in a house next to the other house right here. When stuff collapses or when the sun blinks during the day, that person will come out, and he has a buddy who lives nearby. So eventually two people will get to this building, and because they are the authorities in the village, they will want to investigate it themselves. So the characters, we decided, were on the square as well. Let's say there are 4 of them. And they see this thing happening, and now they are either going to talk, or they are going to react, or they're going to do something different. But they will start to talk. And these are the fun things for a dungeon master, because you can let things happen when people start to talk. Because that will give them a sense that the world is alive around them. So the first thing you will probably do is discussing, telling them that when the sun went out, a moment of silence fell. But then the few people that were still on the square started to talk around them. They heard things. They heard strange. They heard them gasping. They heard them saying things like, "Well, it's been abandoned for so long, but now it's suddenly collapsed. What does this mean?" And somebody else says, "Might be the end times," because there are always myths about end times, right? And somebody else said, "Don't be silly, John." And so they hear this gossip around them, and probably, well, you have two kinds of people, right? The ones that are saying, "Let's go," and the others say, "Well, should we be doing something about this?" Now, the first case, this leads to two forks in the road, right? In the first instance, shall we go? They will arrive at the cottage before the steward or the hoi polloi of the village get there. And in this case, they have the advantage because they can step into the house, they can start investigating before even anything happens. And then the social encounter that will follow will be one where those who want to investigate the house will certainly want them to get away from there, and they might even be annoyed about this. Let's just say they are annoyed about this. The other way around, when they take too long and start talking, and you tell them, well, you see these two people coming out of their houses, talking with each other, and they are going to the collapsed house, and they are now, one of them is standing in front of the door while the other's going inside. Then you have another encounter, namely that they would approach the house, and the person that is standing there will say, "Halt." This is fun, because this is where you can show the characters that they have agency without having to do anything like combat or breaking laws or, well, anything that's aggressive, so to say. In the first case, they might have to persuade the gentleman. Let's give them a name, right? I know now why the transition isn't working. That's because I'm in studio mode. Let's see if I can stop that. Yeah, so now it's switching immediately. So we have to get to know something more about Pleasantville. Let's do that in another thing called chapters and NPCs. And we call the first chapter, we call that chapter 1, Pleasantville. Okay, and in Pleasantville, we now know you have the barkeep. His name is John, probably. We have the, oh no, it was a lady, right? Johanna. Then we have the kind of steward. And his name is Grizzle. Then we have his friend of steward. And his name is Potter. And now we have to, because they are going into a social encounter, we have to know something about these people. And we are doing a starter adventure, so we know that they aren't the most lofty people there, but Grizzle might be the strongest person in town, and that's why he got the stewardship. He might be a warrior, for example, or a fighter. Let's make him a fighter for now. So we know he's a male. Probably let's make him a human fighter of a certain level, like 4. He did some adventuring in his life, but he never got around to actually making a difference. And then he settled in this in Pleasantville, and he became the man, and everybody respects him. But his nature is not that gentle. Now, we know that if you make a fighter kind of type, that and he's a grizzly man, so he didn't really invest in training his social skills. So we probably know that his charisma, talking about Dungeons and Dragons again, is somewhere between 8 and 12, probably somewhere in there. Although he did get the respect from the village, but it's probably not that that he got it out of diplomacy, but out of showing strength, right? So now we know that this is the kind of person that he is. He has a charisma of 8 to 12, so let's just make it 10. He never did anything with any kind of social skills, so any modifier to an ability score will be +0. Now, why is this important? Because why am I just putting this down? That's because this is all we need for this encounter. We don't have to develop the steward on a whole. We just have to know something about him that makes sense. We know that he can be impressive when he draws his sword, for example, but we don't have to know which features he exactly has. And when it comes to that point, we can take some template from the internet, or we can decide what his attack would be. But if the players really mess this up, then, well, give yourself 5 minutes and start developing this character a bit more. Let's do that. So we know that his main thing is strength, and he's 4th level. So across his career, he probably has gotten an 18 in strength, because he probably started with a 16 in standard Dungeons and Dragons rule, maybe a 15, but probably a 16. And so he got to 18. Well, he might have one magical item, but probably not. So he has a sword, which he obviously is proficient in because he's a fighter. So his attack will always be around +6. His damage output will be attack +6. Damage will be weapon +4, right? This will always be him. Now he might have features that support him in such a way that before, if you go really deep, a bit deeper, like he might have second wind, he might have action surge, and he might have like a fighting style, like great weapon fighting, or he might have dueling, and that will modify this slightly. But this is about what he has. Now he's in normal clothes. He might be a bit dexterous, so his AC is 12. And what do we know? He has hit points, right? So hit points, they are like on average with a good enough constitution. Let's say 21, 33. We could make him stronger, of course, but it's not really necessary. So these are the stats you need if combat ensues. Well, I can do this pretty easily because I don't understand the 5th edition mechanics, but if you're not into this, then we can condense this even more. Just by saying we don't need to know his strength. And we can just kind of copy the fighter from the party and add a +1 bonus to everything, and then we have about the same skill set. If you as a Dungeon Master have seen the character sheets of the players, then you can easily modify them to be their own enemies right now. Or flip to the page for a bandit, get a bandit leader which has a +1 to everything that the bandit has not. You add +1 for to every stat of the bandit, and there you have your grizzle as well. But I think now Potter is his good friend, and he has been here for a long time, and he's a bit, He likes Grizzle, but he especially likes the fact that he is with Grizzle, because that makes him the second most important man in Pleasantville. And though everybody is kind, people still have these urges where they want more power or they want more money or whatever. So Potter is also a male human for now. It can be anything, you understand by now. He has a kind of roguish nature. He has developed himself somewhat, but not that much. But he plays to Grizzle's emotions, and he has developed this over time. And he really took to deception in his years. So now we have to know his Scha again. He probably did something more with it, although his main stat will be dexterity. So his charisma is about 12. Speaks with a lisp and has a slight hunch, yes. We'll get to that part as well. Charisma 12, so he has, but he has taken expertise. Can that be done? Second level? I think, right? I think so, right? Yeah, that can be done. So he has expertise in deception. So his total modifier is +5. Not that high, but and because he counters other people with what he does, has a +2 modifier on insight checks. Proficiency doubled, so that's 4, and then 1 from charisma makes a deception of +5. Rogue expertise, which is the feature that doubles the proficiency bonus. Then, if he does combat, we know that his dex is his main score. It will probably be at 16, which means that his attack will be at +5, because it's always at +5. Damage is #, but it's a first level encounter, so just let him wield the dagger, and he does +3 damage. We did it this way. His armor class is dex based. He is outside, but he doesn't wear any armor. So his armor class is 13 and his hit points are way lower. He didn't invest in constitution, so he has 9 hit points. I didn't include that in the other one as well. But sneak, he might have sneak as well, of course, because which is in the SS. We know about sneak, right? So this is the friend of the steward named Potter. Now, here you have your social encounter, but you have to know a bit more about these people. So, how does he act? Brusque, bearded man. Because all people with beards are brusque. Look at me. Sly. What did you say? Speaks with a lisp, slightly hunched. Now, if they will ever recur in your campaign, then you might develop them further. But this is all you need. And in a way, I've gone further than I should have, because really the only thing you need is this. And this number, you can decide for yourself what it's going to be. You can just say it's +1, it's -1, or it's +4 at the start. But by now, I think we should go a bit more into what a character can be. How you can easily build up a character from player handbook experience only, really. And remember, get it from the character sheets of your characters. If there's a rogue, then you kind of know what it does on first level. If there's a fighter, then you kind of know what it does on first level and you can add to it. Or pick up the monster manual or some kind of compendium, or just type in Bandit 5e in Google and you get your stats from that. Or wing it. And wing it means that you decide on the spot what you want their stats to be. And there's another part to that as well. And that is, how difficult do you want it to be? I think that what I do differently from Roger, when I think of the people they encounter, as soon as they have a class, the things they are good in always have kind of a +5 bonus, because why else would you have gone and do that otherwise, you know? And the other things are +2, +0 to +2, depending on what kind of character it is. What Roger does really good is spread the strengths of the opponents across more than one person. So you can encounter groups of creatures and feel strong about yourself because they have lower stats, but it's still believable that they have these stats. Because I think that a lot of encounters we did, like the bandits, they had a +1 to damage and a +2 to attack, and they had an armor class of like 11 or 12 when they were wearing leather armor. So they weren't as extreme as player characters of that same level would be, and that's why he could put 3 against us, or even 4, or and made us win anyway, because we were just this bit stronger. But at first level, it's one hit and you die in any other case, and you could still die from a 1d6 +1 damage that a person deals, and especially when it adds a 1d6 as sneak damage when it's flanking you, for example. But we have this encounter prepared for the shed. And you see, I'm not even getting to the road trip this evening. Well, I might, but it takes time. Are you enjoying this? Am I doing it the right way for you? Are you learning something about how I plan, and does it help you plan? Because if you have questions, chat, please ask them, and I will go a different direction with this, or I will highlight other parts of this of what I'm doing, so to say. But this is sharing yes, please, you want something new, Sir Skankalot, or you like what you're seeing? And now I don't know what he's talking about. A sip of water. No, I like it more. Okay, thank you. So now you have this comment somewhere. All good. Dev way more in depth than me. I just put plus and minus numbers for rolls. Yeah. Well, what I'm trying to do is you can pick different levels of expertise and grow into them. At least that's what I'm trying to say here. Because, again, I would not write this down normally as well. I'll do this just from my head. And as I said, I recently did a 13th level against 8 players legendary encounter without preparing, and we had a blast. So I can do those kind of things by head. But I think that it's important that you know what your limitations are as a dungeon master, and how you can cope with, well, not your limitation as a dungeon master, but how you should limit yourself just a bit when you're working with a first level party, and how you can approach these kinds of subjects. So that's what I'm trying to do here. Let's just say that Grizzle has dagger as well on him, because he left his sword at home, and it was a very local deal. So that makes them a bit more acceptable as first level encounters, although they probably don't want to fight them anyway. So now we have 2 social encounters. One is where they are already in the house and the people are getting angry, but you always have like the face of the party, right? Let's call them the A team. You have your BA Baracus, you have the face, and everybody of them. See, Murdoch, Why can't I come up with the with the reader? Hannibal? Yeah. Chat says, I can't give away too much. Got to keep Michel thinking I know what's happening. Yeah, yeah, like that, right? So let's start with the social encounter where they are there first, and this Grizzle comes in. What do you? What is their motivation? And I think their motivation is that they want to investigate the thing themselves. So if they see others in that home, well, first off, I think they are in their right to say, "Hey, what are you doing there? This is not your house, right?" And so the social encounter will revolve around them either getting out of there with, hopefully, their relation intact with Pleasantville, or they should convince Grizzle that they can really help because they, for example, helped the Bard yesterday. And maybe Grizzle has already heard about this because they are so great at doing it. Or he heard about the ruckus and he dislikes that they confronted the other Bard and made a mess of the other place. Oh, I think we said they resolved it peacefully. So he might be kind of okay if they give you the right arguments. So here's the next part. Don't use roles if you don't have to use roles. That's what I'm saying. So, and this is a difficult thing because a character that has invested in persuasion, deception, or intimidation, or charisma in general, or speaking if you're using another system, wants to use these skills because he has invested in them. So a player, if he is really about what's on his sheet, might really want to roll a die to get a success. But you can tweak the kind of result he will be having by letting them actually speak to this person, right? And when they speak to this person, a narrative will ensue. And in this narrative, they have arguments. And if the arguments are lined up well with Grizzle's idea of what's okay, then you might give them advantage on the roll. If it totally makes him angry, you might give him disadvantage on the roll. And neutral, you just don't give advantage. You just make it a normal roll. But if you detect that the players are just going for this conversation, not even asking you to roll an opposed die, and their success is so obvious because of what they are saying, then please let them have that. Don't make it a roll, because it's silly if they invested so much good stuff into a conversation and then they roll a natural one, and for some reason you have to explain to them that even though they did a great job, it just didn't connect with the character that's opposite of them. And then you also have Potter, who might not like anything encroaching on on this situation. And if Potter went in together with Grizzle, then he might really try to convince Grizzle that it is not a good idea to let the party do their stuff in this house. And then you have a social conflict, and I think that's what you're aiming for here, and really making the stakes if they can investigate that house or not. Question from chat: how much would you vary this for newer to RP players, more or less roles? Yeah, well, if they don't ask for it, don't start with it. That's what I would say. I had this new party and they started at an inn, and you had this player who really wanted to do stuff with his great axe, and that came about pretty quickly because there was a zombie patron walking in. It had been his home drinking hole for his whole life, and his body got reanimated and simply walked back into the bar. But it was a very scary zombie, so they had to defeat it. So you got this thing right away. But just before that, we had a card game at the table, and you saw that 3 out of 7 players that I had or 6 at that moment at my table really wanted this talking and weren't even looking at the sheets or anything. They just wanted to talk and see what they could get out of this guy. And I think I did make them make a roll anyway, just to explain the mechanics. But it wasn't really necessary because they got the information from this guy because he was willing to speak. But when the stakes are getting higher and they are starting to trying to convince a guard to look the other way, then certainly let them roll for a persuasion or deception check, whichever is more appropriate in that situation, because they should feel the adrenaline by then. And the significance of the situation is not really that they should convince them with honorable means that he should look away, but that they really use their skill to make him look away because of arguments. And then a persuasion or a deception check is really, or even intimidation check, is really what you should let them roll, I think. But it's the same with bosses, for example. Do you want, when you don't have to roll, let them roll. If the conversation is going in such a way that combat is imminent and they want it, and the boss wants it as well, because there is really no way in which he will get persuaded to just drop his weapon, then let the narrative develop itself and make logical choices about what's being said. And if for some reason they can still convince him, they make a good argument, then you know that breaking point where a persuasion check might do the trick. But I am mostly against situations where a persuasion check shouldn't matter and you roll anyway. You roll a 20 and the Dungeon Master says, okay, then he leaves his goals that he has developed over the last 20 years because you rolled a good persuasion check. I mean, imagine in the Avengers that one of them would walk up to Thanos and say, man, what are you really doing? Half of existence wiped out? Come on. And he rolls a persuasion check. He has a plus 12. He rolls 32. He decided that 30 would be enough for some reason. Then a 32 is rolled and Thanos says, you're right. Here's my glove. A gauntlet. That really takes away from the experience, I think. So you have to be careful where you draw the line in those cases. But if it's a minor boss or it makes for a great story, or then do it anyway. And if they have had because there are these other players who just can't do it. They can't make a decent argument against a dungeon master who is playing all these non-playing characters. And then it really takes away from them that they have invested in a high charisma, and because they can't speak as well as a normal person with a plus 3 charisma and plus 8 or 22 persuasion would, they will always fail. So that's not a good option as well. Yeah. So chat says, against to Ashley, you summoned me? And Ashley says, was just messing about, saying I can't give away secrets or you will. No, I have no idea what I'm doing. Well, Ashley has no idea what he's doing. You know that now, Michel. But he does though. Right. Anyway, so that's what I think about these roles. But it's important. So to recap, if people have invested in these skills, it's important to use them and to really make it work for them, because otherwise everybody will leave those skills behind and just go into the athletics, the acrobatics, maybe some history, and that kind of stuff. And but when a conversation is just so good that the success would always happen, let's go at that, and the other way around as well, except when a character just can't cut it with speaking words. So that's my vision on social skills. So there, in this case where we were talking about, there's a social conflict, and that will get resolved in a few ways. Grizzle might get annoyed by Potter because the players make great arguments. Grizzle gets strengthened by Potter in a statement that they should leave the house. Potter might be impressed by what the characters are saying because they made a good persuasion or deception check, or maybe even intimidation check, and they both decide that they could use the 8. Anything can happen, and that's so fun, and you can't script this beforehand. You just know these two persons, you have a little bit of an idea of who they are, and then things revolve. And the same is with if they get to the house after these people are there, it might be a more relaxed state in which they meet Potter and Grizzle. And Potter might even think of, well, it would be great showmanship to let them in and help us, because that makes me a better person as viewed from the townspeople. So in that case, it might even be easier to get into the house. Or if they say, "Hey, we want to go into the house. Why are you here?" Then it might immediately set them back in the conversation. Anyway, the conclusion will be they can get in or they cannot get in, and probably if they can't get in, they might get out at night and investigate anyway. And then you have to know what's inside of the house. I think we decided that we didn't want to go into the big thing, but it's always cool to have your cellar ready and do some stuff with that. So I like cellars because they can hide stuff, and they are always kind of well, let's just say it's different from a living room, and that it always feels more dangerous. So a cellar, and in this case, it might be a great opportunity to let them discover new things, like discovering a secret, discovering an item, or even discovering that something dark has happened there, but they have no idea what it was. So let's make a mini dungeon out of it, right? Because that's always cool. Now, we all know maps, so I'm not going to draw anything new right now. Let's go to the map thing again. But in my experience, it feels good if there are at least some things. Chat says, well, that's always been my philosophy. If the RP is good, the DC should reflect that by being a 12 rather than a 15. I said a week ago, because the player really immersed and should be rewarded for that. Works out mathematically similar to me handing them advantage. Okay, yeah, I agree. Lowering DC is a good way to reward good role-playing. But keep in mind that not all of them can, and that if it's their strong suit to be a persuasive person, even though they can't persuade themselves as players, that this should... you might decide even then that you put it on a 12 for him or her, and on a 15 for somebody else who you know hasn't invested in that skill. But that's a good way, dropping the DC because of a good conversation. Yeah, surely. Yeah, I think that's what they do in Critical Role a lot as well. So we know there's a hole in the bottom right now. So light is coming in from above, and there's this pretty well conserved cellar. There used to be a ledge in the corner, and there's a stairway there that's leading up. And I have to get a different. So that's leading up. There's an arrow next to it. But the family who lived here has died a while back, because that's why it's abandoned, and it was under mysterious circumstances. So the biggest things have been taken away, but there's still this closet standing there. There's a big chest that is closed now, but has already been ransacked. And there's this heap of a pile of clothes that's in the corner that seems really messy and has deteriorated over time. I think this happened about 10 years ago, and mold has set in and everything, so there's a bit of a smell, So this is where the hole in the ceiling is. It's with a finer print, so you know that that's not part of the bottom. And this is the room they get into. Now, what you might want to do is that they should be able to find something, find object, find secret, and find clue. Oh, there we go again. Why does this happen? Let's see if I can fix this, because this is really strange. Okay. How do I get this thing to work again? One sec. Oh no. It's even more worrisome than I would have thought. Yeah. Depleted. Well, let's go the other way. That's restarting. So I'm going back to the other screen for now. Dang, forgot to hook it in, and I think it's because it. Well, let's do that at another point. So you might want them to find something, because here you are rewarding the players again for doing stuff, right? And what I think is pretty funny, that I have a group and they neglect to investigate, and they neglect to use stealth, well, mostly, and I'm a harsh dungeon master if it comes to that, and they have skipped like 12 magical items by now. So I give them hints that they should investigate more, and I have by now said that they have skipped a lot of magical items through their career as adventurers, and that's I think they are starting to realize now that they should do stuff. But a great way to get them invested in this is to start early. So find secret, find I did it like this. Find object, find secret, and find clue. Okay. Now, let's make this logical. Oh, let's first do chat again. I love social roles, but it is a kind of weird that we expect them to be accompanied with RP. All other skill checks you roll and then here, whether you succeed or failed. Technically, it should be the same for the social skills, but most use it the other way around. But if you jump, you make a roll. If you are smart enough to run first, that jump becomes easier. You try to move the rock. Strength check. If you use a spear as a fulcrum, get advantage on the roll. Yeah. All other skills you roll, and then here whether you succeeded or failed. Yeah, so they are both good points, you know. I think it's the situation that really determines how you handle it. And giving advantage, disadvantage, dropping or increasing the needed result, giving your awkward friend a roll to determine the result versus the not so awkward friend letting it succeed automatic. But if they're in the same party, that can become a problem as well, because why has the friend with the social roles then invested in those roles when the other who hasn't invested in it makes the role anyway, in a way. You have to. It's a party thing. Your party will determine what you can and cannot do in that way. And you know if you get a lot of sad faces that you're doing something wrong, right? So, find a secret. I think find an object. Because we don't want this to be the main adventure and we're going on a road trip in a sec, let's make it a small thing, like a burned doll. You know, something happened here and there's a burned doll. You're not going to say anything about it, but it's just a burned doll. They find a burned doll. And we decide that this is easy to find because we want them to learn that you can find stuff. These are 9. Depending how they do it, investigation or perception. Then find a secret. We want them to find a secret, but we also want to give them the feeling that, and this is a difficult one, that they can not find a secret. So I would say the DC is a bit higher, and if they fail, what you can do, because this is a kind of trial, to say, that's a pity. But then when you show that they really missed something, probably one of them is going to say, but can I have another try? And you could say, well, normally I don't, because the one who really did the investigation has discovered nothing, and you don't really know that they didn't discover anything, but I allow it for this once. And if the DC is 12 again, then they have found it, and if it's low again, then you say, well, that can happen as well. You can miss out. But what they find is a secret door behind the closet. Secret door. See me mistyping. I'm a famous mistyper, by the way. So you'll be seeing a lot of that. And are we there yet? Yes, we are. Camera. Action. Restart that. Connection will be stopped. Yeah, that's still the right one. Yay, we're back. For some reason the Baba. Okay, so this is the dungeon or the cellar I drew. But they can find a secret room. Well, at just the right moment, right? Let's get another one out. Let's take the 0.2. Secret door is always fun to find. So when you do a secret door, always describe a mechanic. not just you open the secret door, but how is it done. Include it in the same investigation roll, doesn't matter really, and just say that, well, you find this panel and you stick your hand into a hole, and suddenly you feel that you can push it just a bit back to make it slide into the wall. Describe what it does, because that builds up the suspense of finding such a secret. And then behind that, of course, there's a corridor which leads into a somewhat more cavern-like chamber, and there it seems that a lot of cloth, well, now I'm messing up my pens, a lot of cloth was once there on the walls. You see the remains of molded curtains, and there's like a body in the center, lying there, skeleton. And that's what you tell them that there is. We don't, and there's a triangle-like symbol around him on the ground. You don't tell them what. Well, you could tell them what this is about, but as a dungeon master, you might not know yet, right? We decided we didn't know yet. So this is a mystery, and the thing that really sticks out is that everything is kind of a lot of, probably a fire happened. See you soonish. Thanks for joining, by the way. So fire has erupted, did erupt here, and the skeleton is blackened, and apparently this person closed the door behind them, and but fire got out anyway, and that's why the house collapsed at a certain point. So we now know that it's a burned out building. And find the secret, so that's the door. Find a clue. We don't know what the clue is yet. But let's just say that it's a ring that also has the triangle on it. Like a silver ring with a black onyx triangle. Nice? Find clue. Ring with black onyx triangle. Find DC is low again because everything has decayed over time, so the ring would probably stick out, except when there's a lot of burnt stuff on the ground still, but let's presume it's not. Chat says, I always feel bad with secret rooms. I can't put up a shelf, let alone hide an entire room. I can't put up a shelf, let alone hide an entire room. Do you mean your own home then? This requires lore, but we are not going to include the lore yet, right? We are just going to requires lore. Triangle is a thing in real life. Yeah, well, I've never built a secret room myself, chat. I don't have the need for it. Although, you know, when Armageddon comes, I'm ready. No, I'm not. Although I have a few pots of peas in the cellar, my own cellar, so that might be a thing. But they find a clue. So this is what this will be about, and then you mysteriously say there's nothing else to find, and they can ask, of course. They can ask Potter or Grizzle who lived here, and he will tell a story about the family, and that well, let's presume it's the mother of the house did something dark. We don't know, but they only found the father and the son, and here we might get too dark for some players, burned up in their beds because it was a flash fire and they didn't stand a chance. So that's the dark past of Pleasantville. You know, it's a Pleasantville, but this has stuck to the history of this town. The fire that burned 10 years ago, that took away this house in a flash, and the family that died there, but the mother was never found. I have a lethal dose of whiskey. I am ready for the end times. Yeah. That's a method, man. That's a method. So it's a cute little map. You can share your map. It's fun to do. Or there are quite a few ways. You have people who like drawing their maps themselves. So they might ask you, what's the room like? And you describe it, and they say, well, how many feet by how many feet? And then you say about this many feet. You see that I don't draw squares in this. I thoroughly dislike squares until we get to Battle Grid. Earlier times I always used like a 5-inch, 5mm pages, like these map pages to draw my maps on. But these days I just like to draw by hand and make unique maps that really have their own feel to them. This is not how I would do it. This is a very quick map, but to really go into detail and make it not abide by any rules. But this is a small thing that will get them involved in finding out what this ring is about. Let them meet a few people, have a social confrontation in a positive or negative way, might decide to sneak in at night and all these things. Then you have to decide, are there people outside? Probably not, because it's such a small town. So nobody's making watch, everybody's in their own home, and it's a pleasant time after all. So what did we need for this adventure? Well, we needed to know something about Grizzle and Potter. We needed to know what kind of items to find, just for the fun. And we needed to have a small map, just because it's fun to make a small map. But they take on, and then we go to. They have to now. They have to get the. What was it called? Let's scroll back a moment. Cask of beer. Let's copy that. They're now going on the quest for a cask of beer, right? The quest for the cask of beer to pick up. I never know. So that's the quest. So that's chapter 2 in a way. Now, see how meticulous I am at this. That's why I never write anything down myself. Get a cask of beer. It's a fetch quest. So it's boring as hell if it's just about fetching that thing, you know? Traveling 2 days to, what did we call it? We called it, no, it's in the other thing, in the adventure. See, I'm mixing up things now, because normally I do this, like non-playing characters, is what I do in my chapters and non-playing characters thing. And make notes about what's happening. And then these kinds of things I do in a separate part of the adventure stuff, so that I know what can be found there and have a comprehensive list of what to do. The other thing I always also do, but that comes in later really, because at a certain point you have to keep time, is make a timeline. And you do that by making a day 0 and describing what happened, and only if something relevant happened. So arrival in Pleasantville Oh. Like that. I'm writing it. I'm doing it the right way now. Suddenly looks strange. But anyway. Let's go back to the adventure part. Am I right? Present. Should I write it like that or not? Am I doing it totally wrong? I'm suddenly getting a bit. No. Anyway, the quest for the cask. So it's pretty boring to just get a cask, but so you have to do something. A road trip is cool because you can meet people there, and I think that in case of this foreshadowing aspect, present, yeah, with an A, people, and it should be like that. So there should be things happening along the way, and then you have to think of these things. And at this point, I really would recommend, because they now have 2 social encounters, doing something with a waylay or anything. And waylays are fun because it's a road situation. There might be other people on the road, and the battle map, in principle, is pretty flat if you want to make it easy for them, like people on the road. But there can be bushes and trees around the road, or rock formations, or even a ravine next to them to make it really scary. So now we have to decide a bit of kind of what the area is about. So we draw another map, of course, because I like drawing maps. To visualize what the road will be, and we know that it's about 2 days away, right? So we've got Pleasantville right here, and then we've got this other village right here. These are small houses, and then we have the road that's in between. Now, what we decided already know from Pleasantville is that there's a river south of it, and this river flows like this and comes back to that part. So we possibly have a different kind of way for them to get to. Forgot the name again. Like Ochre? Yeah, Ochre. We know there's a river. We know that it has 4 trade routes, so one's going there, one's going there. So probably this one will lead to Ochre, because that's another village as well. The road isn't straight because there are always land features. So let's say there's kind of a mountain range here that makes it so that the roads have to follow kind of the height lines until they get up to there. And there's of course a forest nearby, because that makes for a great waylay situation. And at a certain part, they have to go through the forest to get to the other side. And that might be where the bandits will waylay them. Why would you draw a map? Just to get the visualization straight, so to know, so that you know where the mountain is compared to their road, and you can talk about bends in the road that will lead them further south, so that the mountain gets more to the left of them, and to know when they will pass through the forest and how long it will be. Because really, what we're saying is that this is one day and this is the other day. And if they somehow get horses from Pleasantville, I don't think there will be horses there. They can do it in one day, and then the encounter is a whole lot different. But they will get a cart anyway, so maybe there's one horse, and they have to take the road to Ogre and get there and get the crate. Well, if you know like the comic Order of the Stick, you know you never should plan for more than one random encounter along the way. So the keyword here, phrase is here, a random encounter. Probably not, because they get boring as hell. But if you make an encounter that seems to be a random encounter because it is bandits or it's goblins, but it has a story behind it, then you shouldn't count that towards the number of encounters you can have on a road. Why am I saying this? Because I think Chad mentioned it last time, and that's that the monsters have motivations as well. And that's really fun to play with. So if, for example, we would put goblins on the road in front of the players, they should have an idea of why they are doing that. And this is where I'm almost starting to address another topic, and that is when is a monster just a monster? You know. I remember that when I was a teenager and I started playing when I was 11, there were caves full of goblins, and we could slaughter them all, and there were no consequences really because they were evil, and there was treasure to be had at the end of the cave. Then as you get older, the standard orc, for example, that you encounter might still be the enemy, but they might talk to you. And at a certain point, you realize, well, maybe this orc has got feelings as well. I remember reading Era Salvatore, the Drizzt series, and then you get to, what's his name? Oban or something? Anyway, the orc who was trying to get the nations of orcs to work together. And you suddenly realize that these people, although they are very harsh, they are people as well. And you have been slaughtering them for decades because they are of a different species than your own. And at a certain point, I think that as a player, when you're getting older, you start to realize that the simple fun of executing the monsters along the way isn't for you anymore. And that's really... It's because your imagination and your sense of moral is getting richer over time, but you are getting deprived of something as well at the same time, namely the sheer joy of just doing things that are cool because you have a weapon and you want to get through rows and rows of monsters. So if there's an encounter along the way, and you are a teenager watching this show and your moral compass is way off, please make goblins just ambush you and make them attack the party, and if they want to have the loot afterwards, let them take the loot. But if you are into this phase in your life where you want to make it a significant thing, think of why they would even attack the player characters. For one, I think they should outnumber the player characters because otherwise they won't feel safe. They would have to have a great motivation to do it on other grounds as well. So Chat says, Ogre has a lumber yard and they are cutting down the goblins' trees. Yeah, pretty easy one. So it might be a revenge thing. And that's why they are doing it. And then imagine them not being able to communicate with this village of Ogre because they're getting shot down as they approach it. So they really want revenge on the thing. And they are in their rights. But they will be attacking because we want to have a fighting encounter, but it might be that if they leave one goblin behind, they might see their point of view, and you are aware of this as a dungeon master. And then the question is, should they feel bad about killing the goblins because they had a point. And they shouldn't. Well, you might decide that they should because you are that kind of dungeon master. But this is what I talked about at the start of this episode, and then we're coming full circle. Players shouldn't feel bad about everything they are doing. Not everything should have consequences that gives them trauma along their whole career as an adventurer, because then in the end it will not be fun anymore, because they always suspect that the things they are doing have greater consequences than they could ever oversee. And of course they might kill the big bad boss in the end and have victory, but if the whole road to that has been always if you have always been saying, well, you did that, but that's because you did that, this other kind of goblins attacked Pleasantville, and they were whole Pleasantville was murdered because they were so angry at you, and that's what happened. And then you're starting to ask, so I should have let them go, but then they might have killed the next. Yeah, that could have been as well, but it's always negative, man. It's always negative. No matter what your choice is, it's negative. So, for this encounter, we are saying, if they cut them down, then that's it. The goblins have enough of it. They have killed them. They don't know exactly why they got ambushed, but in the end, the goblins were evil enough by themselves that they would probably have attacked Ogre if they had the numbers, and they saw this as an opportunity to really take revenge. And chat now says, some of us only play paladins because for us the fun comes in agonizing over the moral choices of others in the struggle to do the right thing. Yeah. So one saying goes with in my campaigns, never play a paladin when you're in one of Jasper's campaigns, and that's partially true because I think that the low point in the paladin career, and even in earlier editions you just would lose your paladinhood, is that moment where you realize that you've gone too far and your paladinhood gets taken away, and then you're on the path of redemption, which is always cool, I think. But I will certainly discuss this with... Well, I probably decide as a dungeon master, I would decide you are losing your paladinhood, and then after the session I will talk to this character and say, do you like this path that we're on now? Or are you saying, well, I've now just lost my class and I don't think this is fun anymore, and then we're saying, then we're going to do something about redemption in the next session, because that really is an option. So we have a goblin encounter, and now you can make this as difficult as you want. Let's search this, right? This is a goblin. Can we see it? No, we can't see it, of course, because I'm still on that map. So this is a goblin, and we've now established that they are attacking because they are angry, and because the ogre is cutting down their forest, because they are collecting timber for the export of their beer, their ale, and they are going to attack the party, and this is a goblin. A goblin has nimble escape. The goblin can take the disengage or hide action as a bonus action on each of its turn, so that's a kind of rogue ability. It has a scimitar to fight with, always thought inappropriate, but anyway, and a short bow. So now the question is, how intelligent do you want them to act? And how many of them do you want to be there? So let's just say that because they are from the forest, they'll be attacking in the forest. And now we have to really think of a battle map that's interesting enough but not scary enough. Because I think that we want the players to win, right? If you say not, then I'm going to make it too difficult encounter. But let's just say that they are going to win. That you want them to win. Let's see if I can get this. Yeah. I really like this paper. Oop, there we go. So, let's return to the other stuff. They don't really have any special abilities, so maybe maybe we'll put a special goblin in there. But let's take it from a kind of battle map point of view at first. This is the grid I like to use. 1-inch paper from these flip overs makes for great battle maps that you can draw yourself. Of course, we've discussed this before. You can do Roll20. You can do all kinds of other stuff really to make for a good battle map. But I like my my pen and paper ones. So, the most basic thing is that there is a road, right? And of course, the road must and the encounter really starts with them standing on the road, and then initiative is rolled because for some reason this is the distance where they stand there. They might jump out of bushes and they confront and they say hold, and fighting commences. Then you have a pretty straightforward battle, and you can get a lot of them in. Although when you look at the goblin, it deals 1d6 plus 2 damage on a single shot. So if you have 4 of them and they all focus on the leader and 2 of them hit on the first level party, they might kill the first person before he ever took his turn. So you still have to be a bit conscious about that thing. Put it up there because looks a bit silly, but let's do it this way. But they are feeling confident in overcoming the prey, so there should at least be 4, I think, given that the party is about 4 people in size as well. And they are seemingly stupid in this case, so they jump on the road, initiative is rolled, and we see who wins. Now the next thing is that you can make one of them jump, and there are bushes here, and 3 of them jump out of the bushes as the player characters approach them and trying to kill them. Then you might say there are bushes here, and there are bushes here, and once the player characters are going that way, they might jump up. Oh, map again, sorry. Have to remember that. So what I was saying, there are bushes here, and one stands in the middle of the road. Not a goblin, but who cares? And is confronting them. And this is funny because the camera is from the other way. And then there are goblins hiding in the bushes here and bushes here. So as they approach, they get surprised by more goblins than they thought there were. Then you can say there are bushes here, and as they pass them, they will go. The goblins here will go after the casters. Then you could say there are trees here, and they are sitting in the trees and they are sniping with the short bows, and all the melee characters suddenly have a big problem by hitting them. Then you can say all the goblins are shooting those with ranged weapons first. and they are shooting from cover, but the players don't have cover. Then you can also say that they have laid a trap here, and as soon as the characters pass over that, something bad is happening. The road might always also go up as you go along, so they might have the advantage of being on higher ground. It's not really a thing anymore, I think, but you can make all kinds of rules about that. You can even make it so that it's pretty steep, and here there's a sort of hilly thing where one of them is standing and has an advantage because they can't really get to him except from where they walk around, or there's a ranged attack. So all these things add to the difficulty of the encounter, and it's up to you how far you want to go with this. In any case, from the moment that you're deciding to make tactical choices, I would suggest in this case not putting more than 4 goblins around here, or, as Roger does for example, making them weaker than their stats allow them for. So make the short bows frail, letting them deal 1d4 plus 1 damage, or even 1d4, and snipping away at their hit points so they feel good about it. Then possibly increasing their hit points just a bit so they can last longer when they are in combat. I think that is a thing Roger does as well. I don't know for certain, but I sometimes get the feeling that that we have a lot of hit points against us. Anytime I'm referring to Roger, it's because he DMs our Precipice of Dreams adventure. You should certainly watch that if you want to see these kind of encounters in action. Yeah, so that's how you should think about combat. The other things, especially in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, is that damage is front-loaded. So the first round almost always has the biggest impact. And the other things is that numbers matter a whole lot in 5th edition. So that if there's even one more goblin than there are players, then there's a big chance that the goblins have a very big advantage in the fight. The other thing is, but I think you have to decide this in front before you start the encounter, and is there a possibility of backup? Then you can certainly make them a bit weaker, but on the rare action, which is on turn 20, or on initiative 20 most likely, a couple of new goblins might emerge and join the fray. And in that case, you can make the combat even more dynamic because they can approach from this side or this side. It's all forest around here, so they can come from all sides. Might be a bit silly why weren't they all there in the first moment, but it might be that the party of goblins saw an opportunity as you passed and were away from their main party. The other thing is you have to really decide, can my players handle this? Are they aware enough of what they can do to make this combat a success? Because if they can't, or you're making it too difficult, then the first encounter might simply be that they are in front of them on the road. Yeah. So that's how I would do a combat encounter on the road. And I have another idea for another social encounter, or for maybe a wandering tradesman who has something to sell. That's always fun as well. But I'm not going to be going into details about that. But a wandering tradesman is pretty cool. Someone who has this one magic potion to sell, probably a healing potion. Players might need that, especially in this combat, so they might encounter it at first. They might find the price too steep, but they regret it as soon as they encounter this and the first wounds are starting to show on their body. And remember that people are probably realizing that something will happen along the way because they are adventurers, you know. So yeah, that's how I would approach your first combat encounter in the wild. What do you think, Chad? did I get your attention, or am I doing things that are way too obvious, and am I being condescending if I do this, or is it a great build-up to show you how you can do this? I don't know. For me, it's always that people are talking about these things, how you would prepare this, but they never show it. So I'm trying to show it how I would do it. And it's not the right way, the way I'm doing it. It's a way. But yeah, this is how I would do it. Nice and thorough build-up. Thanks. Well, thank you. I don't think we are getting to over this session, and I think I will do one other Pleasantville related session before I go into depth about other stuff that you can do for preparation. I have a lot of ideas, as I said, and I'm hoping I can really get you involved in my thinking process and maybe answer some questions from chat as I try to do this day. Chat says Ace, but goblins can be so deadly. I've had to run away with them a few times with a party of level 1s after some good rolls. Yeah. So the other thing, well, it's good that you're saying that before I end this episode. It is not unheard of to have an NPC that might be in the neighborhood save the party. When I started to do the Night Below, the first encounter that they have, that's written in the adventure itself, is against another party of like 5 or 6 persons who put up a friendly face and then try to kill them because they want to have the casters in the party and everything. And for my party, and it said if they die, this is a harsh fight, so if it goes wrong, then this druid that's in this campaign as well, see page this and this, will come and save them. And that they nearly died and she came to save them. And that's okay, but that's an out that you can do sometimes, but don't do it every time. Because otherwise they will always think that help is on its way if they feel something. And it's already quite hard for a dungeon master to kill his party. And I'm saying that very seriously because I don't want my party to die. I want to have them have a difficult time at an encounter, but I'm pretty sad if they die because you get invested in these characters as a dungeon master and as players. It's never fun to lose your character. So, but combat has to feel deadly up to a certain degree to keep it interesting. Yeah, so these are layers of combat. I think that's what I described here. And I did a social encounter this campaign, and I tried to build a bit around the lore we are developing without having to develop the whole world, because that's a whole kind of different kind of business. And that's not what these few first episodes will be about. Well, yeah, I think that's it, people. I'm going to take this thing away and... Oh, this might be fun. This is a map I used recently to... there was a Bodak and a ghost in this room, and they were standing in this hallway, and a Bodak can kill with a single gaze, and it killed the first member instantly. Or, well... instant kill effects aren't that fun, so I made it a failed 2 death saving throws and they got him up anyway. But it was a tight encounter with a lot of possession and avoiding gazes. It was pretty fun. Yeah. And as you see, I just like these maps. They're drawn pretty quickly on the spot, and there was a secret door behind the closet. You see? Isn't that fun? Yeah, so yeah, folks, that's it for tonight. Be sure to watch Michel Parallel Projections next Monday at 8:30. Talking Void will be on the Tuesday after that Monday, at 9 o'clock, both Central European time. And I will have Eric as my guest, and we'll be talking about what was the decisive moment where you decided to never quit playing role-playing games. I'm changing that topic, the title of the topic every time I say those words because I don't have it in front of me. But you know what it will be about. And the Monday after that is the Precipice of Dreams again, and I'm so looking forward to that session again. And man, I can't wait to play the next session because that was just amazing. People. Chat says, thank you, Jasper. Excellent session as usual. Well, thank you. And, well, seems you had a good time. I'm really trying to find the balance in talking a lot and doing things on paper and typing stuff. And if you have any questions about that, be sure to come here the Tuesday after next Tuesday and ask your questions in chat, because I think that's really important, because otherwise I'm just sending and I want to really interact with you. So give me some feedback. Give me some feedback in the YouTube comments below if you see this on YouTube. Join us on Twitch if you can. But let's make a show out of this. Thank you for watching. Man, that was too quick. Sorry, I wasn't in studio modus anymore. Thank you for watching Jasper's Laboratory, and hope to see you soonish. And I had a lot of fun, and I think you had a lot of fun as well, as I see in chat. So thank you so much. And let's do the the Talking Void outro, because I still don't have an outro for this show yet. So be seeing you. Goodbye.